I feel like good things about Bolivia is just like how family is very important for like people. How they will try to always make you feel like comfortable when you come to their houses. I think those are things that I really like. I'm a shy person. Like I can be an introvert, but sometimes I also act as an extrovert. So maybe I'm in the middle. But sometimes for me, I realized it was kind of hard to talk or speak up in huge groups of people.
Right.
Do not take it personally, like never, and always, because that protects your heart. It doesn't let you go to your home and be like, is that person don't like me, or is there a problem? Like, because if you take it personally, you will go on and on. But when you protect your heart and your mind, it's like, it's good, because you're able even to have these conversations with them in a very healthy way.
Sure.
With not anything in like between.
Hey, Belen, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good, doing good.
That's
Before we
nice.
get started, if you want to let the wonderful people on the internet know who you are, what you do, any likes, dislikes in everyday life,
Okay.
future aspirations, anything and everything you're comfortable sharing.
Okay. So my name is Belen. Actually, my first name is Fatima, but I go by Belen. I'm from Bolivia. I'm a senior studying at the University of Central Oklahoma. I'm doing medical laboratory science, and I'm doing a double degree with biomedical engineering. I'm a little nervous on how my degrees go, since the programs are just completely different in some ways and similar in others. But I love it so far. I'm getting ready for my clinicals next year. Some of my aspirations, I want to be a genetist or something with genetics. I don't know how that's going to happen, but that's something that I'm very interested in. I wanted to be a doctor first, but I don't know where to look. Sorry.
You're good, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a
Look
doctor.
anywhere you want to look.
Okay. I wanted to be a doctor first, but then it was like my dream since I was a little girl, and I was getting ready for that back home. But when I moved here, it was just different.
Sure.
Like the system is just completely different.
Right.
So I don't know if that's gonna happen now. But I'm still like open to study for that and ready to do that, if that's the case.
Got it.
I think that's basically me.
Sure. Why those two majors? Like, did you see that as a combination that would help you in the future, or was it just something that was recommended to you?
So at first I was just doing one major, but then because of credit hours, like I still kind of like an off year, like this year and next semester. So they just like recommend me to do another thing, so I don't have like extra classes that maybe I don't need, and maybe it will be like helpful for me in the future.
Sure.
But yeah, that's why the double major comes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What about genetics fascinates you?
It's, I think for me, it's just the way how genetics can cause like those little things can cause something really. They will be like, as like you will see it in the outside, and it will cause a super huge change. Like it can be a disease, it can be like how you look, it can be anything. And sometimes they even like talk about personality disorders and all that related to genetics. So it's really interesting to me, like how a little change can make that impact in a person.
Right, like how those mutations could lead to something much larger that's outside.
Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. What was it that made you feel like you wanted to become a doctor when you were small?
I think it goes related to how I grew up and the necessities I saw, like not only in my family, but also like around where I lived, like in the people around me. It was just really sad to see like how a lot of people wouldn't be able to go to a doctor, or like will struggle with a lot of health issues. And honestly, like when you get sick, it's like, okay, I really need to go to the doctor, because sometimes you don't know what you have, and it's very important to have someone that like can actually help you. They be like, okay, you need this, if not you will get worse and worse and worse. So I think just seeing a lot of necessity back home like made me realize, okay, I want to be a doctor, I want to be able to help in this way. I think that touched my heart a lot, just like seeing a lot of people not being able to like get treated when they need it.
And I think you mentioned that you're from Bolivia when we started, right? Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, who don't know rather. So is the ratio of like doctors to possible patients very lopsided?
I would say there is a lot of people studying for medicine, and I think there's a good rate. Like it's almost, I don't know. I think it's
Like there's a
good.
balance.
Yeah, there is balance. I think the problem is the facilities they have, the hospitals they have, the resources they have,
Right.
more than doctors available for them.
Got it.
And at some point, I also think like if there are facilities there, those are pretty expensive even for people. Obviously here are more expensive, but it's still expensive for people back home. And I don't know. Yeah, I think
Gotcha.
that's why.
Gotcha. Is that like commonly observed throughout the country? Like I go back to the ratio point. Is it observed everywhere, or is it mainly in the capital city that the ratio is good, but in other parts maybe it's not as good?
That's a good point. I think in other parts, even the facilities are not good. Like they don't have like hospitals around that area, or if they did have like one hospital, because it was not, they didn't take care of the hospital, like it just doesn't work anymore. I've seen a lot of those things happening back home. Like they will build a hospital in the rural areas, but then because people didn't know how to take care of it, or there was not too much attention for like from the government, right, or the people in charge, that place will not be working anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to look at the brighter side in some sense, let's talk a little bit more about Bolivia. What does Bolivia mean to you?
Oh my gosh.
I
Well,
know there's probably a lot to unpack there, but let's just start there.
Well, it's my home.
Right.
So it really means a lot to me. I love the people that is there. I love my food. It's Bolivia means my home. I think that's a word that I will use to describe Bolivia. It's my safe place. It's, I think, where I had a lot of memories while growing up. So I was a pretty happy girl. So it means a lot to me because I have a lot of good memories there. I had my friends. I grew up in a very healthy environment, I will say. Like I didn't experience a lot of bad things. And I think that was also like related to how my parents
brought you up.
Yeah. I mean, in a good way, I think it's good because they were always there for me, and then they tried to be like good parents to me. So I think they did a good job. I feel really happy with my parents. That's why
Got it.
I think
No, completely fine.
So yeah, I think it means to me a lot of happiness, a lot of peace. I always felt peace being back home. Like just the lifestyle is like you get to see your family. Like you go to school, but then when you come back home from school, you sit with your family, with your aunt, with your grandma, and you drink tea. And then after drinking tea, you go do homework, and then you get ready to like have dinner. And then your mom comes home, and everyone has dinner together. So I think for me, it means peace, it means happiness, it means I have a really good support system with my family and friends. Yeah.
Gotcha. We'll get to the parenting thing in just a second because I'd like to explore that a little further to whatever level you're comfortable doing that. But going back to, yes, I guess Bolivia as a country, for people who know where Bolivia is, I think there is a perspective that, you know, it's maybe not doing so well financially as a country and so on. But what is it about Bolivia, in your opinion, that the world might not know?
That the world doesn't know?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to really talk about politics, but I think this has a huge impact right now on how Bolivia, the state of Bolivia right now. Because there have been a lot of political problems over the past few years. And I think that's been one of the hugest thing in Bolivia that has like caused financial problems, social problems, even like I just think there's a lot there. It's been really sad to see that part because I was back home when all these things happened. The country stopped. There was a lot of like confrontation with people, among people. Like it was really sad, really, really sad. And even until now, what happened during those years is still like causing a lot of hurt in a lot of people. So yes, Bolivia right now is not good financially. I think Bolivia has a lot of good things that they can maybe export to other countries and like get more money, but we don't have those really good like business people that can think and can invest in that. Right now, Bolivia is like still like producing and like living happy like over there, but not ready to think in the next level. That's my opinion. And there are a few people that yeah, they are doing well, like they are exporting their things or they have like that business vision. And you can see that that is very successful, but there's not a lot of people that is ready to do that yet, like to think in the next level. And I think you need huge leaders that will stand up for like the financial problems, to make this like to make a solution for this.
But what is good about Bolivia?
What is good about Bolivia? Well, people is really kind. There is, as I said, there are a lot of um, different kinds of food that maybe you won't find in other, maybe you'll find in other countries, but there's a lot of production of these things. It's just it's not well used. There are like quinoa that I found really expensive here. Back home that is super cheap because we have it a lot. And then we have like so many different grains, so there's a lot of diversity in like just what you can eat, even animals. It's so beautiful to see all the animals. There are a lot of minerals as well, but there are not a lot of like you cannot. I just feel like there are not a lot of businesses or like people that will explode these resources. Yeah. That's good talking about the material things, but I feel like good things about Bolivia is just like how family is very important for like people, how they will try to always make you feel like comfortable when you come to their houses. I think those are things that I really like.
Right, like those values you probably cherish much more about it.
Yes.
And you mentioned something. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay. You mentioned something that made me want to follow up on that a little more. You mentioned that people are happy by themselves and are probably not exploring the next dimension when it comes to business and flourishing financially. I guess there's an argument to say that isn't that okay? Like if they're happy, like why do they need to explore? What's your thought on that?
I think we need to have also a balance in that.
Right.
Like I feel like yes, I love the that we have that happiness and that peace. Like everyone like just peace. But to talk in the future of our country, I think we also need the balance that there needs to be like some vision for the future. Because if we all keep like this, we are gonna keep in this state, but the world keeps developing and developing and developing. And we are still like in this state and just struggling like with a lot of things outside, but we're happy. But yeah.
As he was saying that, like the thought that came to my mind was I've heard this phrase when I was growing up too, is that, you know, a lot of the times people who don't have much, they say are generally much happier than the people who have more.
Yeah.
So I wonder from that perspective, like, you know, in this in this very aspirational world of wanting to seek more, like sometimes, again, like I'm not saying that people shouldn't dream, like that's not what I'm getting at, but like I think there is some balance to meet, right? Kind of like what you said in terms of being satisfied with what you have and also aspiring for more. So I guess it's definitely something that I guess every society in the world sort of needs to look at. But I think if you can be happy with what you have, that's also a good place to be. So it's just interesting how that works, like in terms of the dynamics of the health, I guess, of the society versus how it's doing financially, right? Like the financial health versus the mental health, if you will, for the lack of a better way to connect that. But that's interesting, like, because like if you compare it to the US, I guess in some sense, like everybody has this vision of the US as being like, oh, it's a very ambitious country, or like people who are there are ambitious, always seeking more, always wanting to do more, wanting to do the best and all that. But are people here happy? I don't know. It's just a thought that I have. Do you want to explore that?
Yes, and I think maybe more than talking, like people being happy, like are they enjoying it?
Right.
Like what that moment, or something that I always like happens to me is that when I'm here in the US, like life is so busy.
Right.
Like everything has like a time, an hour, and everything is on a schedule. Like everything, like meeting with your friends, having dinner with, I don't know, with someone. Everything has a time and it's on a schedule. I think back home, I never feel like I needed to make like, hey, are you available at this time with my parents or with my sister or with my aunt? She will be, Belen, let's go grab lunch, like at any time. But it's
Right.
not like, okay, are you available on Thursday to go grab lunch? So it was a completely change every time I go back home, like after being in the US and then I go visit home. It's like it really takes me 2 weeks to kind of slow down and stop feeling the anxiety, like, oh, is there anything else I need to do, is there anything else I need to do? But there's nothing else I need to do because I'm on a vacation visiting home. But it takes me 2 weeks to adjust to the other kind of like culture or flow of life
Sure.
of back home, just like being around my family, go for a walk with my aunt at 4 p.m, then meeting all together, drinking tea together, and then just like talk, oh yeah, and how, what do you think about this? Just like having those conversations, but not like carrying out myself, oh sorry, I need to leave for my next meeting at 7 p.m, I have dinner with someone else. Like no. And then also I just like that it's just so slow and you feel peaceful, and then you sit outside and you enjoy the view outside, and you're like, your neighbor is passing by, you say hi. So it really takes me 2 weeks to go from like this level of busyness to like this level of, oh, I can have peace, like I don't know. So
yeah, it's just fascinating how that works. Now that we're on this topic, I just want to explore it a little further. Is happiness in what you have, or is it in seeking more, or is it in like the balance between the two? Maybe we've already kind of talked about this, but I'm just sort of curious to explore it more broadly, I suppose.
I think something, the way I grew up, and how my parents always taught me, since I don't come like from a really wealthy family, but always looking for the best for myself. Like my parents always like making me aspire for the best, like being the best, like being ready to be prepared, but always being grateful to what I have. And I think when you're grateful to what you have, it's like you automatically feel happy because you feel grateful. Like, oh, I'm grateful because I'm sitting here. Oh, I'm sitting. Like, oh, that's good. Oh, I feel comfortable. So you feel that kind of peace in your heart. So I think it leads you to be happy or content in that moment. So I think for me, uh, like feeling happy with what I have, it's how I try to live every time. And that doesn't mean like I'm not gonna aspire or dream to anything. Yeah, that doesn't mean that. It just means like I can feel peace and I can enjoy and I feel content and I'm enjoying the moment. Like I don't need to have any other thoughts like, oh, because I'm doing this right now, I need to also start thinking for the future. I can just enjoy this moment. Yeah.
In that sense, like, I guess I have multiple questions popping
No,
up. I
it's
guess
okay.
we'll explore the one about gratefulness and then go into other things. It was a thought I had this morning, like about being grateful too. I was like, and again, maybe some of this comes from the news of like
Okay.
certain things happening in the Middle East and all that kind of
I
stuff,
know.
right? Like, and again, this is not to sort of diminish anybody's problems around the world, but
Yeah.
in some sense, like, I guess you can be grateful for having problems and being alive,
Wow.
right? Like, I know it's a very bizarre thought in some sense, but like, I've heard people talk about, you should be grateful for the fact that you've opened your eyes this morning, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Or you have a roof above you and all those kind of
Yeah.
things. So that thought just hit me this morning. To like, it was just a passing thought, but it sort of made me think, because right, like sometimes we crib so much about our problems, and sometimes it is justified to like be upset, and sort of feel those emotions when you face certain problems. But like the fact that you have the ability to fix those problems, I think is also something to be grateful for, right? Like,
That is
are we
true.
always grateful for it? No. Like, I think it's a constant process of like
Yeah.
being able to get there, and it takes work, but it's definitely something to, I guess, think about to add more perspective to
That's true.
like how things are happening in in our lives. And that being said, like, do you see gratefulness more as a skill, or is it something that comes naturally to you?
Oh, interesting. I think for me it comes naturally
Okay.
in the sense, and I think it's because in the way I just grew up, like, and also in what I believe. So obviously sometimes I will also get caught up in the things like, oh, I'll be focusing on these. I'm a human too, so I will be focusing on my problems. But I've seen lots of times like I'm so focused on the problem, I'm like, oh, or like I'm so frustrated with something, or I'm feeling sick and I'm like, oh, I'm really sick. But then you get to realize, like, oh, for me, like something just like happens like that, and then like, oh wow, thank you, like this is not going like this way, or like thank you because I'm still like, I don't know, I still have these, or like thank you. I think there were some different moments, and very recently when I got sick, and then I was just laying there and I couldn't move at all. My mom was there, so she was able to take care of me that day, and then I was like, well, God, I'm really thankful because like I have my mom right now here taking care of me, because if I was gonna be alone, like I don't know how this was gonna go. Like I was gonna be like, I don't know, like even mentally, emotionally, and like physically I was already bad, but in the other aspects I was gonna be completely feeling devastated. So I realize like there are a lot of moments in my life when I'm struggling. There's something that makes me realize and points me to, oh, thank you. Like I can have peace now.
Interesting. The reason I asked that question is because sometimes, like, I've heard people talk about how like it's something that you also need to like constantly put into action to where you get to a point where it becomes natural. Because like with a skill, right? Like, I guess when you're trying to learn certain things, you do it multiple times to where it becomes just second nature, right? To where you don't have to think about doing it; it just flows and it happens. So that was sort of like a thought that I had in terms of it being a skill. So yeah, because again, like sometimes it's our beliefs that motivate us to get there.
True.
Sometimes, it's just wanting to seek a sense of, I guess, peace or satisfaction in your mind that gets you there. So it's different for everybody. But yeah, I think it's interesting how we get to that point of being grateful as people. And I just wanted to add to the previous thought about the problems and being grateful for having like for being alive to deal with those problems.
True.
I'm not trying to sound tone deaf in any way, but yeah, like sometimes, we also don't have the ability to deal with the problems we have. So,
That's true.
So it's also important to realize that, and, I guess in some sense be thankful for the fact that I guess we have the ability to deal with it. So we should do as much as we can to like sort things out. But yeah, I hope that wasn't a tone deaf statement, and if it was, please let me know. But yeah, huh?
I think it was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in that sense, like getting into parenting, because you said that that's something that helped you also adapt and like learn to be grateful, I suppose. What were some things, and again, you can answer this how comfortable you are to go into like how much you can explore to the depth yourself. I'm not going to ask you to go too deep if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But what were certain practices that you felt at home have helped you like grow into this person?
Okay. So I might not be able to recall everything, but
That's
I'll
completely
try.
fine. Whatever comes to your mind.
I just feel like, for example, my parents. So I had my mom and my dad, and my mom and my dad are very different. My dad is more, I don't know, more like a social person when he wants to, but he's also very like strict on what he wants. Like, and he's a dreamer. He's a completely dreamer. My mom, on the other hand, she's a planner. And so if she doesn't see the dream, like she will always try to see reality. Like my dad will dream, but my mom will like try to see reality. and put the limits. And also my mom is more like, I don't want to say she's cold, but she's more reserved to a lot of things. But my dad, no. So I had like kind of the two different personalities going on at home. And I never understood this before, but like when you grow up, like you start like, oh, okay, this was this. When I grew up, I was like, maybe la 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 la. I didn't pay attention. Like I wasn't analyzing them. But once I grew up, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Um, so I think that kind of put two different kind of personalities on me, because I can see myself being a dreamer, but also a planner. And I think that helped me in that way to become who I am. But if I recall moments, uh, every time I will like finish school, most of the time I can remember my dad picking me up from school, and we will just talk. Like, how's my day? I will tell him about my friends. I will tell him like if I'm struggling with something, or like someone made me upset, or like if something happy happened to me. So having those conversations as a little girl with my dad really helped me a lot, because I can see my dad as a very wise person. Like he is very wise for me. And every time I follow his advice, it went really good. Like it went good. Like everything I did, like kind of following his advice, it actually really went good. So I'm glad I follow his advice most of the time. I'm not gonna say I follow all the time, because I'm also a kid. I'm sure I didn't. But just having those conversations with my dad, I think helped me a lot. And I think my dad also knew how to talk to me. In a Yeah, I'm a little girl, so he cannot talk to me as an adult. And I never realized that until now, because now he talks to me like as I'm a little older, and he can tell me more things. But when I was a little girl, he will talk to me in that way. But obviously he won't like hide things from me or things like that. But just the way he talked, it was maybe for my age, and it was good, because I never felt like, oh, I have so much burden on my shoulders, or I have so many things here. So that's something, just like having someone that I was able to talk everything. Like if I was feeling sad, he will always like comfort me. Or if I was like, I remembered where sometimes like I was like, Dad, I don't think I'm doing this right. Like I don't think like I'm even useful or like here. And then he was like, Belen, just be thankful and then be grateful you're in the moment. And that's why like we talk a little bit of the gratefulness, because that memory came to my mind one day, like having this discussion with my dad. He said, you need to be content in the moment. Like just enjoy it. Like this will happen. Like this will go one time. But you just need to be content and enjoy right now and be thankful. So when we're talking about that, that memory came. I remember having that conversation with my dad. For my mom is like really goal oriented. So talking about my studies, like I remember one day I went to my mom, I got 100, and she was like, okay, good. And then I was like, okay.
You were looking for more?
I don't know, but because my professor said you should go to your mom and you should tell you got 100. And then I went to my mom, I got 100. She was like, okay. And I was like, okay. And then I went to class, and my professor asked me, what did your mom say? She said, okay. And he was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. And then I remember having a conversation with my professor and my mom's reaction. And then it's like, okay.
Right.
But so I think what my mom really taught me, my mom is really hardworking. Like how she grew up is completely different than how I did. I always had everything I needed,
Right.
and even a little bit more. I think because of my parents' effort. Like I always had like everything I needed in good quality, I can say.
Right.
But my parents did it because they didn't have a dad, or they didn't have a mom, and they really grew up very, very like in a very poor situation, where they fight for themselves, like
Right.
in order to go to college, in order to go to their studies, in order to survive. Like if I hear my mom's stories, like it's really hard. And I can understand now like why she like a little bit more reserved, like she's more goal oriented, because maybe she didn't have like the moment where she can dream.
Right.
Like she needed to like act and follow that and follow that and keep working. So if I can like say something that my mom really put into me is like, hard work. Like when I show my handle for him, I was like, okay, like you need to keep doing that. It's not like, yeah, it's good, but you need to keep doing that.
Right.
So that's something that I can see from my mom. And another thing I also see a lot from my mom is like, she was always sacrificing herself for like me, my siblings, or my dad. Like if I am sick, it's my mom who's gonna wake up early and is gonna be there like taking care of me. Or if I need to go somewhere, it's my mom who's gonna take me. Or like she's always there, like sacrificing herself for me. Like even if I'm not eating healthy, she will wake up early and she will cook and like send me food. So I think that's something I noticed from my mom. Like I always had her provision from that side, and I never realized until I came here. You know, it's like, oh, I'm not eating and I'm hungry, and then it's like she was always there. Yeah.
Wow. There's quite a few things I want to unpack there. I guess the first one I'll ask you is this. You mentioned the importance of how your dad knew how to talk to you. How important do you think that is to learn as a skill for yourself? Because you're someone that works with a lot of students. You know, like as a president for an organization. I mean, you can mention the names if you want. I'm just being more general, but working with people from different parts of the world, all that kind of stuff, like brings its own challenges. So, yeah, how do you feel about that aspect of learning to know how to talk in different situations, and how do you feel like about your own position when it comes to that?
I think this is a huge skill for a person, especially when you work with a lot of people. It's a huge skill. And for me, I'm a shy person. Like I can be an introvert, but sometimes I also act as an extrovert. So maybe I'm in the middle. But sometimes for me, I realized it was kind of hard to talk or speak up in huge groups of people.
Right.
But lately, like I think that phase of my life kind of also developed, and I'm able to talk and all that. But that's another point. Something that I noticed right now that I'm in this position, like working with a lot of students from different countries, different backgrounds, even different cultures. There were a few moments, like I'm only here 2 months, right, doing in this position, but there were already so many moments where I had different situations, and because I also come from a different culture where it impacted me, and I was like, what? And like different moments. Something that I did, it's like I was able to talk to them, and when I talked to them, even them were not aware of what they were doing. But when we talk about this, it was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And when I will just hear them talking, like it will make me realize, oh, wait a minute, Belen. Just like think about this person's background for a moment.
Right.
Like think about like what is he explaining right now. And when I heard this person explaining to me, I realized, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. But something is like, do not take it personally, like never. And always, because that protects your heart. It doesn't let you go to your home and be like, is that person don't like me, or is there a problem? Like, because if you take it personally, you will go on and on. But when you protect your heart and your mind, it's like, it's good, because you're able even to have these conversations with them in a very healthy way, with not anything in like between. And that really helped me all this time, just like protecting my heart, protecting my mind, and just go in a healthy way with them, talking. And it's been good so far.
Gotcha.
Just like trying to understand where is this person coming from. Just trying to listen to what this person is saying, and yeah, and that really helped me out.
You mentioned something like in the sense that guarding your heart and your mind. Is that something you had to learn over time, or is that something that you were able to do a little more easily?
No, I think it's something that I'm still learning. Because all the time we are like evolving, we are changing. So my heart and my mind are also changing and growing. So all the time I need to keep protecting, and everything outside, it's also like evolving and changing. So I need to constantly be like protecting and like being able to decide what to guard here, like what to let it in and what to not. And sometimes I'm not gonna be aware of what I'm like putting on my heart or in my mind. So things will just come in, and then in a moment you will be like, oh, why am I feeling all this, or why all these things are happening? Then you realize, oh, I'm carrying all these things. Why am I carrying all these things? And most of them are not really necessary. So it's something that I'm constantly like learning, I think.
You mentioned something about that point itself. I had a thought that was there, but then it just evaporated right now.
Exactly.
So I'll try to bring it back. But in the meantime, you also mentioned your mom's reaction to your 100 on an exam and how she is very sort of neutral about it. Is there also an aspect of being neutral when there's good and there's bad that was maybe being imparted to you at that point? I'm just curious, like, because that's something that, like, they talk about as a principle in Stoicism. I don't know if you've heard what that is, but yeah, it's another way of sort of, I guess, analyzing thoughts and all that kind of stuff. People out there who are Stoics are probably screaming at me for that bad definition of Stoicism, but yeah, it's basically it like being balanced with regardless of what is thrown your way, I guess, was what I gathered from that. So is that something that you feel like was also involved there, or am I just making that up?
Well, I didn't know, like, I never heard about this term, or I never actually realized that. But now that I'm trying to think, maybe a little bit. I was really little, so at that point, I don't even know. But I'm sure this happened, like, this kind of things happen different times, like where my mom kind of just had maybe expectations, like for her were normal. Not normal, but they were like, okay, this is kind of what you need to do, and then I don't really know, because I don't know if my parents with me were very strict. I don't think my parents were strict to me or directly strict to me, but I think they already had those expectations up for me. And then I was just like doing that, and they always say like, we never like were under you, like, okay, she needs to do that, she needs to do that, she needs to be like, we've never been like that to you, but we put the expectations bar, and you always like go above that. So we were happy with you, so we didn't need it to do like a lot of observation.
They didn't need like a magnifying glass to look at you always. Yeah.
So I don't think my parents were so strict with me, and I know this goes to a different way of the story,
okay.
but my parents were never so strict to me. But in some way, I kind of see like they kind of were, like, but not directly, because they already had those expectations up for me. But they were not like strict, like in a bad way, I guess. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'm going back to the neutral point. I'm not sure, but I can see myself like whenever there is a problem, I'm very emotional, and that's something I try to control.
Same.
Yeah. Oh, it's really hard sometimes when there's situations, because sometimes when I will put a random example, like when there's two groups and the two groups are fighting, or two people is fighting, and then one people will tell you something, so you kind of like, oh, you get emotional, and you get like, I don't know, okay, you believe this person, and then you go to the other group, and then you also get emotional, and then you believe this person, and then you're in the middle. So several times I think that's a neutral point, like you see both of them like equal, and then when you come all together, I think is when everything gets solved. And yeah, maybe a little bit.
It's just an interesting thought to explore, because I do think that you should also be able to express what you feel, but I guess also knowing that things can go down, things can also go up. So I guess it's that balance to sort of explore when you think about those things. But the thought that I had earlier came back to me now, so I'm going to explore that a little further in terms of like, guarding your heart and guarding your mind when you're talking to someone. Is that supported by possibly seeing the best intentions of the person? The reason I ask that is because, okay, I'm not trying to pass judgment on anybody, but not everybody comes to you with best intentions when they're talking to you about certain stuff, right?
Wow.
So they always have their own personal motivations, which might not be in the best interest of you or the group you work for or anything. It might just be very selfish and personal. True. And again, sometimes you have to be that as well. Different situations require different things. True. But going back to my question before I go into a different tangent, does that come from looking at the person coming in with the best of expectations, or is that something that's just like repeated as a statement itself? I don't know if that made any sense, but
no, you're good. I think I got it.
Okay.
For me, I think it's for my own peace. For what I'm like letting my mind and my thoughts go on. But I can see, like, when you explain more about it, I can see I always look for the person to someone, and I look for the best intentions. Like, now that you told me, like, oh, someone sometimes will come and people just come with their selfish intentions, or like with their, I was like, oh, that's true, and I wasn't thinking about that, but well, that's true. Like, I think I've been seeing people with the best intentions they have, and maybe that's one of my weaknesses. And then I tried in the past, and I try now, but it's something that I'm learning. Like, right. I think I trust people very easily. For me, it's like, and I think it's how I grew up. Like, as I said, I had my parents, I have my family, I have my school, and I was a really happy girl. Like, I had very good friends, I have a good family. So for me, it was easy to trust them. Sure. So when I went outside for my own, like, for me, it's still easy to trust people. Like, easy to believe someone, easy to like forgive, easy to like do like all those things. But yeah, I think sometimes I need to be more careful in like, okay, maybe this is not with the best intentions or like that.
I mean, and those things are very hard to navigate, right? Because you can't read someone's mind. You can only sort of judge based on what you're seeing outside. Yeah. So it is hard, but it was just a thought that crossed my mind. So I thought we should explore that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, to explore that thought even further, do you feel like if you start to become more careful, that you might get to a point where you're too careful and you're always thinking that people are being selfish?
I think so. Yeah. I think if I start thinking a lot, I will, at first, maybe I will be doubting. I'll be like, is this person like honest, or is this person not honest? Like, I will be doubting a lot. But I think lately, like, especially in this role where I get to work with a lot of students and all of them come, something that I notice on me is like, I see all of them with good hearts. Like, I see all of them like they are coming with good intentions and all that, and I don't really mind if they are not coming from like with their good intentions, because I'm giving what is honest from my side.
Sure.
And if they are not coming with the honesty from their side, well, that is on them. But in me, I have that peace. I'm coming with my honest heart. I'm coming with like what is good from like my heart, and that just on them. Like, I'm just giving the good from me.
Right, and that's something to go back to, right? Is to realize that you don't have control over what other people might want to do in those situations. You only have control over what you intend to do, how you want to react, and so on.
Yeah.
Like, because we don't have any control over, like, 10 minutes later when I'm not 10 minutes later, but a few minutes later, if I'm walking outside, someone just walks up to me, is like, flash on your face. Like,
yeah,
you can only react to that, right? Like, you can't stop them from doing that if they want to do it to you.
Yeah, true.
Right? So I guess it's also realizing those things and sort of being able to like do the right mental gymnastics, if you will.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess maybe because I'm an overthinker, I sort of think about things that way. But it's just interesting to explore, like how we sort of react to certain things and knowing where to draw the line when it comes to controlling certain things. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, or let me know how you feel about this. But I do think that sometimes we think we can control other people's reactions by telling them to do things a certain way, maybe, or being like, do this, do that, don't do that, don't do this. But then we sometimes realize that we have more control over our own thoughts and feelings about things and so on. So I always tend to tell this to myself. I have more control than I think I do, but I also have less control than I think I do. And what I mean by that in that sense is like less control over people, more control over myself.
Yeah.
So since we're on there, what do you have any thoughts about that? If you don't, it's fine. We can move on to something else. But I'm just curious to know.
I definitely think that we have control of ourselves. Like we can be able to control most of the time. Like as I was saying, like if there is like a situation where maybe you are having a problem with someone, right? But maybe the problem is not coming from you. Like you even didn't know there was a problem.
Right.
So, but then things start affecting you because you see someone like, oh, this person maybe is not feeling right with me or something like that. But then you can control yourself how to feel and stop kind of overthinking like, oh, this person is not feeling right or comfortable around me. And obviously you can ask. Like for me, something that I do is I ask people or like I talk to people, and it's something that I've been learning, just like asking. And it's coming from a very honest way from my side. Like, and it also it goes to what you have in your heart. I think like if you didn't do anything, then you're like just wondering like, hey, are you okay, is there anything happened? So obviously you cannot control how that person feels like about you, because you might not everyone might like you, and that's true and that's right. um but you can control like yourself and be like, okay, that's fine, I'm still able to work with that, like, or be like, oh, I don't need to feel this, and then you can control just how you feel and start kind of overthinking on that, like, oh, maybe this person is not feeling good, like, or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but
No, I see what you
yeah.
mean. I'm
I mean,
understanding what you're saying.
that was not the best example,
No,
but
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It works. It works. Something else that you mentioned earlier about being content was something that your dad talked to you a lot about. When do you feel content, or what kind of moments do you feel content in?
I think I try to do it every moment. Every moment. And like that helps me to be happy. Like when I'm sometimes like I have class so early, and then maybe it's not my favorite class. And it's a really hard class. So I need to go to class and be like, "Huh." But then the fact that you're able to go to class, the fact that you're getting an education, that you're able to learn something new, it's like, oh, okay. Like it kind of changed the direction of where your mind was going. Like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I don't want to be here. But it changed the direction. Oh, I'm able to learn something. I'm able to like, I don't know, like do something better, or like create something farther away. Like, I don't know, explore new things. So that helps me to, like, that moment of contentment is like, oh, I can be content in this situation. It lets me to be happy. It lets me to be happy and be like, okay, I'm happy in my class.
That being said, like, since we're talking about happiness, what is happiness to you?
Happiness to me, I think it got related to having peace on my heart. Having peace on my heart, but also feeling like that is sparkling thing in my like on my heart and all that, or in my stomach, in my eyes, and my mind. But I think happiness to me goes related to peace, feeling peace.
I think we struggle with the definition of happiness as people, right?
I
Like
think
in
so.
terms of knowing how much to seek externally, how much to seek internally, where do you draw the line, all of that kind of stuff. So that kind of was my reason for asking that question.
Yeah.
Was that something that was helped a lot by, again, your upbringing, your belief system?
Like happiness and contentment.
The happiness and peace aspect.
Okay. I'm pretty sure my like how I grew up like impact a lot of the things I believe and who I am. I'm not I'm not sure if it's like my belief or like my family or like something in a specific. I just think it's like in general. Yeah, I think there are a lot of things in my background that impact me to like believe in this way about like happiness or peace. And something that I also want to say is like, for example, I will see my dad so happy. Like he will by playing with us, he will be singing with us because he loves singing. So he will be happy. Like he seems happy. You can see he's like shining. His face is shining. Um, and I never knew like how much he was carrying on his heart. Like now that I'm like a little bit more adult, I want to say I'm still trying to learn how to be an adult, but I can see that he was carrying a lot of things on his heart, like problems and all that. But he was able to be happy around us. And I can see that was very honest from him. Like his happiness was not faking just because he was around us. And I'm saying that because in those moments, I can see my dad also sharing that happiness to us. And we all will be happy, like singing and having a good time. So I'm not really sure, like, where is this happiness coming from? I just think it's like different ways.
Okay. Do you think it's important for us to figure that out?
Like how to be happy?
Yeah, sure.
How to be happy? I think it depends in the kind of life you want to live.
Sure.
But I can see a lot of people want to live a happy life.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that was always like foundationally a thought for me when I started this. In that we think about, oh, why are people doing this? Why are people doing that? People suck. Da 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 da. But at the end of the day, I think you're able to maybe see them in a better light when you take the position of, oh, they're just trying to be happy. Oh, they're just trying to be safe. Oh, they're just trying to be at peace.
Be good.
Now that I say that, I'm not justifying robbery or anything else, right. Like all the fucked up things in the world. I'm justifying more of the, I guess, smaller actions that don't harm other people, but are more, I guess, smaller in the sense of like certain decisions people make, or certain ways of life, or looking at things differently. Like I'm coming at it from that perspective, not from a perspective of all the messed up things that happened around us. But yeah, so I think that's also important to realize when we're like passing judgment on other people, right? Like at the end of the day, they're trying to seek happiness, right? And I think it's good to be in a position where you're like, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm here. It's something that I try to think of and like try to be at. But at the end of the day, I think people are constantly struggling and trying to find what makes them happy. So if there is something that makes them happy and doesn't bother you or doesn't harm anybody, why should I care? It's a thought that I've had. If it does harm other people, then yes, something that we need to explore, something that needs to be fixed. All right. But on the flip side, I think if someone is coming up to you and telling you certain things, then I think it makes sense to be like, okay, maybe you're looking for happiness in the wrong things, right? So I guess there's that also to sort of look at and observe. I know that was a very tangential sort of thought, but it just came up. But anyway, sort of going back into your experience of working with a lot of people from different parts of the world. I mean, you might have already touched on this, but if you want to explore other aspects, what have you learned from that experience of now? How long have you been working with multiple people? 3, 4 years? Or people from different parts of the world?
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years, it's right? So what have you learned from those interactions with people? And are there moments where you feel, or, well, what do you think you could do better about those things?
Oh, okay. Let's think.
Take your time, no problem.
For sure, I had a good time. So that's the first thing.
Right.
For sure, I had a good time. Things that I learned, I don't think before I was open. Before I was open, but I don't think
by open, do you mean open-minded?
Like open to learn. Yeah,
okay,
open
gotcha.
to learn and like to see different things and all that. But I don't think I was aware of certain things, like how certain cultures do certain things,
right.
Or like what things they celebrate, or how do they eat, or what do they do. Like I don't think I was completely aware, and I'm still learning, honestly, like what this festival means for them, or like who is this god for them, or just like what they celebrate on this day. I'm really learning all the time, and it's a lot. Like, because every culture is so different, it's so special, so unique, so it's a lot to learn for me. um, so I think one of the biggest things I learned is just like I got a little bit more aware of what is this in different cultures. So that's one. Another one is something that I found very interesting. It was so easy for me to connect with someone from a different culture than to connect with someone that maybe speaks English as their first language.
Right.
So with that being said, something that I learned is like how sometimes like you're able to connect with someone that might not look from this area of the world, just because they also are from a different like area of the world, but they are also like gathering here. And I love that because it's super cool. Just like we both have different backgrounds, but we're still able to like get good, like have good conversations. We believe in different things, but we're still able to like talk about what we believe on. We eat in different ways, but we're still able to share food together or a meal together. So something that I learned is just like that kind of respect and appreciation I have to all these different friends that I have, or like people that I met. Um, Another huge thing that I think I learned is how to love them and show love to them. Um, and I say that because for me, love is it's a huge value. I think, and when I talk about love, I don't talk like only about hearts and all that, but I talk about love that leads to respect, the love that leads um, to see you with kindness, love that leads me to treat you well, love that leads me to just like be able to like share my heart with you, like give from me to you in a good way. So I think I learned even how to present myself to them. And I'm still learning for sure. Very recently, not very recently, but last semester, I went to my friend's house and her parents were there and they were having dinner together. So her parents don't speak English much, but and also like they were having a special dinner. So I at some point I didn't know like how to like because I didn't know. I
How to
feel
be
so
around
bad.
that.
Yeah, how to
Yeah.
be around that. Because they had like a special ceremony, not ceremony, but a way how they lead at the dinner. But I didn't know, so I felt really bad because I could see myself struggling. um, but I noticed like I'm still learning and learning. But I think being open to learn um, and be curious to learn too. As a person, someone that I really admire a lot once told me like they were just asking him a random question like whenever you go to an interview, what's the thing you look for, like the person that is going to work for you? And that person answered, that person needs to be a curious person. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
see, you are a curious person, and everyone's like, oh, because I want that person to be all the time learning, like be curious about this, so that person will learn and take the initiative on that. So one of the things that I try to apply here is being curious and like ask like, oh, what is this? And try to learn about them too. Some of the struggles I have, um, as I said at first, like maybe some things were shocking for me too, since I come from a different culture. I wouldn't get it at first. Like I will be, oh, why is this person treating me like this? Or what did that person tell me this? Like in the way like I didn't feel like it didn't feel right. But after talking to this person and hearing this person again, I realized, oh, that I think that's the way this person is. Like, it's not that he's having something against me or like trying to do something to me. It's just this person's personality or this person's like behavior, and that helped me a lot. Just like it gave me a different perspective.
Just out of curiosity, and no pun intended since you just mentioned the word curious, but Is there downsides to being exposed to so many cultures at like a young age? Like, is that something like?
Oh, downsides. I really think everything in life has a good part and a downside, so I'm sure there is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Um,
Like, is there a downside you've maybe noticed?
notice. Let me think.
Think about it. Yeah, that's okay. Take your time. Like, could it be something in the way that you react to situations now, or anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know, like, if there is a downside to that.
A downside.
And there's none you can think about. That's completely fine. But
I think I have one.
okay.
I think at some point I feel overwhelmed. Just because I still don't know completely a lot of things.
Right.
About like different cultures, or like just like I don't know like at full. Even maybe my culture is huge, so I also don't know like everything that happens in
Right.
my country. So me trying to understand all sometimes can feel a little overwhelmed, uh, because you need to treat everyone different. And I like you will think, oh, I need to treat them all equally because we're all the same. But I don't think that's true, because all of them, everyone comes from a different background. So I need to know how to approach to this person, how to approach to this person, how to approach to this person. And it also comes where my culture sometimes will be shocking for them, as I notice others will be for mine. Um, and I think me need to be aware of that, and all the time like try to know how to talk to other people, and how my culture will can affect them, to like how I can adjust to them. It's like it takes a long time to process, I think. And I want to say it really needs to come naturally, right? But sometimes the way that like something that will come naturally is like your culture, like who you are, and that will be shocking for someone. So it's like, okay, I need to think, like I need to be careful. So I notice like that can be like overwhelming for me, like, but at the same time, like I love it, but it's overwhelming. And then you just need to be careful, because sometimes it can cause misunderstandings, and those misunderstandings are really just misunderstandings,
Right.
because of different, just like how we react to different things. But sometimes we won't see it as misunderstandings, and we will think there is a problem there. So yeah, I think that would be one of the downsides right now. I know I for some no, it didn't happen to me, but I also thought about this before, like how sometimes when you're exposed to so many different cultures, you kind of start losing yours, and then because you try to adapt to so many, or like even to one of them, so you stop like kind of paying attention to yours, so you already change. I think that happened a little bit to me, but not really like a lot, just a little bit, in the way that I sometimes do things. Like for example, like when I go home, I leave my shoes on the door, or like in the shoes rack. But back home, you will walk with your shoes on home, because our floors are different, so you will use your shoes. But here, you take them off in the door, and so that's something that I learned. And when my sister saw me, and she was like, like, oh, what are you doing? So it's kind of different too, and I might not notice it, but being around my sister a little bit more now that my sister is with me, like she will like point to things that I like it's not normal to do, but I do it, and I might not even realize those things. But being around here, like she make me notice few things, and maybe yes, like I changed a little bit of like maybe how I was before, and like how I am in my country, then coming here, like I'm different.
Hmm. Oh, you touched on quite a few things there that I think would be interesting to explore. The first thing I'll go back to is the overwhelmed aspect of like feeling overwhelmed to like try to adapt. And does that feeling come from wanting to make sure you do things right?
Yes, I think that's one of the. I know that was a fast yes, but I think one of my like things on my mind is always like I want to do things right. I know as a human I will make mistakes. Right. Yes, I'm a human. I'll make mistakes, but I always had that high expectation. Like I'll try to do things as right as I can, and also to make them feel comfortable. And then I think also this feeling of feeling overwhelmed comes with just like learning so many things at the same time that are just so different. Recently I had a situation where I was not even like 0% aware of all what that meant. So I was just like so shocked because there was a lot and like a lot of information. I was like, wow, yeah. So it's just like a lot of learning, and that maybe makes me feel like, wow, yeah, there's like a lot coming at the same time. And it's not just one thing; it's like so many different.
Right. So, right. I understand the aspect of wanting to be right, like to make sure you're doing the right things, because I think most humans are that way. But I sometimes wonder if we don't give ourselves enough time to get to that point, right? Because I think we think about, oh, I need to do this right, I need to do that right, and we want it to happen instantaneously. But I think sometimes we forget that understanding things and opening up to things take time.
Wow, that's true.
So it's just a thought that I've had, like, in terms of how I might react to certain things now versus how I might react to certain things 5 months later are going to be different, because I'm trying to still adapt and understand and all of that. So I think maybe that's where we could, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think that's where we sometimes need to be accepting of each other, like when we are figuring those things out, and also know that it's okay for it to take time, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're working towards making a positive change, shouldn't that added time be okay? Like, my reason for saying that is, like, you are working towards something positive, so those things take time, and I think patience is very much important in those situations too, because I think we get carried away with, oh, like, it has to happen now, like, you have to understand me now, you have to understand why I do this now. But we're not that way, because a lot of it also comes, like, because you tend to question, oh, why am I wrong? Are my beliefs wrong? I'm just speaking more generally, right? But you tend to question a lot of things, and you end up doing a lot of mental gymnastics when you are bombarded with such, I guess, thoughts. So it takes time, and I think what I'm getting at is generally to maybe ease that feeling of being overwhelmed. It would definitely help if I think if we showed that level of patience to like help people adapt. Because when you force adaptation, I wonder if they're actually adapting or if they're just sort of being like, oh, okay, this is how I need to react, this is how I'll react, but if not really adapted.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because I was just thinking like, what is really worth it? Like, is it worth it to just like have a good moment, or like to have growing, like
Right.
long term growing, or just like short term, like we growing? I don't know if that kind of makes
satisfying
sense.
the short term need versus growing long term. Right.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That was what I wanted to say. So when you were saying all this, like I thought about that, and like this thought just came to my mind. Like, I think it will be more worth it to have like a long term, like growing, that just like having a moment of satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And yeah, like we need to give ourselves time. Like, we need to give ourselves time, and we need to give other people that time too.
Yeah. And I realized something, like for me, is like it's really easy for me like to understand others, or like give others time, or like be patient with others. But I feel like with me, I'm really hard. Like, I have those high things, like Belen, you need to do these things right. Belen, you need to like adapt fast. Belen, you need to do like this and this and this and this. Like with her, it's like, yeah, it's good. Like, and it's because it's good. But for me, it's like Belen, Belen, Belen. So I don't know.
I relate to that. I definitely relate to that in some sense, like, because I try to be kinder outwardly as much as I can be, but I can be very harsh to myself when it comes to those things. Like, so I understand what you're getting at. I do. I think, and again, like, I think that's where it also becomes important to realize that you have to be patient with yourself. Because things don't happen in a day. Like the very cliche saying of Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Like you have to sort of give yourself time and be patient. And I think trust that things would work out. I know it's hard when you don't see outcomes, because I think we live in a society where we're geared to see outcomes quickly, or maybe like reactions quickly, just through like many different things. But yeah, it's an interesting aspect to sort of explore within yourself, to understand where you require that patience with yourself, and sort of being at ease with the fact that you're working towards that and you will get there. You just kind of have to be patient about it, because it's not going to happen in a day. I had a question, but again, it's evaporated. Let me see, what else can I conjure up real quick? In terms of working with different people and being around so many people, what is one thing that you've observed to be common amongst everybody? Or is that even possible? Common to everybody. Well, if it's not possible, it's not possible. I'm just curious if you've observed anything. I think it's possible, because I for sure, like, as I was saying before, like something I've noticed, like, is like we all come from different backgrounds, but we all get along really well, and then we just like form this good like family or like group. So there should be something that makes that happening. So I want to see, like, what is that is making this happening. I've been trying to think. Is it just a common goal of wanting to get somewhere together as like an organization, or is there something else? I think, yeah, that could be one. I think something that I also think is like everyone comes like with different goals, like their own goals, right? But it's kind of related to the same thing. So all of us together with this different goals coming together make a big goal with different little goals. And all that means we all want to work for the same thing, even though we have different goals. And coming together, we support each other's goals. If kind of that makes sense. But something that I really think is just like the open heart everyone has to accept each other and be able to support each other. I think that's one of the hugest thing I've seen, especially like now that I've been working with like a lot of people. I just seem like they have that open heart to support each other and in anything they're trying to do. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. I think, and that's what helps, especially in situations like this when you have a larger common goal, right? It helps for people to be on similar wavelengths when it comes to being open to different suggestions, being open to working at things differently or doing things differently. So yeah, definitely think that those things certainly help, I guess, and that if it's common amongst everybody, it definitely helps like work those things out when it comes for like, okay, working on this organization, need to get here, everybody's on the same page, great, we'll get there, kind of thing. So yeah, I can see that definitely helping, and being that common thread. uh, as you're sort of winding down, uh, going back to sort of, I guess, observing Bolivia and America and like the juxtaposition of you being here, what's something that you think Americans could maybe learn from Bolivia? And what's something that you think Bolivians could learn from Americans? Or do they even need to learn anything from each other? I for sure think we both can help each other at some point, like like learning art. So I think I'll go to the something that I thought before.
I really love how once I go back home, I just don't feel pressure to keep an agenda or to keep myself thinking about the future all the time. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Yes, you need to think about your future, right? But not like,
not to a level where you're always anxious about the future.
Yes, exactly. Or like keeping everything so busy. I think that's something that I've seen here. Like, really everything has like time, hour, schedule, this, work, go. Like, if you want to go even to like eat, coffee shop, and then go this. So all the time I feel like here I cannot stop. Like, I need to keep running. I need to keep running because everyone else is running. So when I'm here, I do not stop. Like, I'm just running, and then I'm running, and like maybe you can fall because I don't know, something happens. You need to stand up and keep running. Like, there is no time to just like sit down and be like, the weather is so nice today, right? Even if you want to do that, you need to schedule all the time to do that. And for me, like, yeah, it seems logical, but no, this is not how I grew up. Like, when I will go back home, I'll be like, I will walk, like, I can sit outside. I can, like, after school, I would just sit outside with my grandma, and then my aunt will pass. And we have this tradition, like, at 4 or 5 p.m., we all drink tea together. Like, tea or hot chocolate, like, we all drink something together, and we, like, share bread and all that. So it's so nice. Like, I get to spend time with my family without the need to schedule. Like, it's just like, it just happens.
Right.
Yeah.
It happens naturally.
Naturally, yes, it happens naturally. But I also think it's like, it like a huge part of this is like, what are your priorities? I notice, like, in my hometown, my priorities are my family. Like, one of my huge priorities is my family, and then my studies. I think that's the order: family and then studies. But I know in different parts of the world, like, or even here, I feel like it's you first, and then your studies maybe, and in other, even your studies, your success, you, and then your family. So just how the priorities work are different. But something that I really kind of would like in America to happen, like, to learn from, like, how I grew up, and like something that I really love, I slow down, or like kind of to experience this kind of peace that I experience.
Be in the moment.
Be in the moment, like, enjoy. Yeah, don't worry, like, oh, I need to leave right now because I have to go to here. Like, yeah, enjoy. Something I would like from America, kind of to Bolivia, like what Bolivia can learn about America. As I said, like, all of us like live so happy, like that. But like, it's nice, but really the work keeps developing and developing and developing. So
society in Bolivia could use that aspect a little bit.
Yes, I can see that the organizational part, like the business part, or like, because there are a lot of like problems right now as we talk, financial problems, and just like even those hospitals, right? Those hospitals were built there in the rural areas for these people, but there was not enough people able to manage the hospitals or be able to take care of these hospitals. So just having that kind of organization, I guess, like, to make things work out, it will be really good. Yeah.
In saying that, do you think, because I've definitely noticed what you mean about the sort of individualistic approach of living here, like we become, and maybe some of it has to do with the fact that we're away from home and we have to sort of fend for ourselves, that we become individualistic. And I generally feel like American culture also is a little individualistic. I might be wrong. If anybody has different opinions, feel free to share them in the comments or on social media, whatever. But yeah, like, I think it's quite individualistic as a culture, whereas a lot of the other parts of the world, I feel, are maybe a little more collective, a little more society driven. Not saying that America isn't, or not saying that the Western world isn't, but I think sometimes we sort of run in this rat race of me.
Yeah.
But other parts of the world are like, oh, but what about the people I love?
Yeah.
What about my relatives? What about the area I come from?
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's also important to maybe try and strike that balance. But yeah, before I get into my opinion, what is your opinion on that?
I can see that. Yeah, I definitely see that happening. Yeah, as I said, like I think their priorities are just different, and as you mentioned, like yeah, even in social media, you know, when you look in the videos, it's like me, 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 me. Like I need to do me, 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 and so like even how social media works right now is like maybe because we are here, like we can see more videos from here.
Sure.
So it is very
self-involved.
Yes. Yeah, extremely self-involved. I can see that even in the social media, even being here. Yeah, I agree. I noticed few things like even with my friends, like and as you said, like we move from home, so we also adapt to like just try to survive by ourselves. So I agree with that. Once I was around my family after that, it was just kind of weird. Like even like now when I like if I was back home and I was still living with my parents, I will need to ask my parents every time I want to go out because I still live with them. So I will still need to tell them I'm going out. I will need to come home like obviously before like 11 p.m. or like if they know like they will come pick me up or something like that. But here like I can decide when I want to go out, like if I want to stay over like with my friends or like if I want to come home late or early, like if I want to take a nap at any time of the day, like have an hour break, I can take a nap. But I think when I'm around my family or when I'm back home, like I need to think, oh, everyone is coming at this time, so this is dinner time for all of us. Oh, this is like lunch time for all of us. Like my sister is coming at this time. Now I need to think about my sister. I need to think about my mom, my dad. Like my dad comes from this time. Like okay, needs to go to bed early. So it's not thinking only about me. It's thinking about them. For some reason, like during college, especially how the college system here is, like I think that was like a good thing for me, like being a little bit away from my family, just because if I'm home, I don't want to say I get distracted, but I kind of do because I'm like used to like being with that flow, like being around them, you know. Okay, let's have tea together. Let's have like drink some coffee or hot chocolate. Let's talk about how was our day. But I don't think I have time for that right now.
Like that difference of relaxation involved
exactly.
in the day, right?
Because if I relax, it's like I continue relaxing and then I'm okay, let's go to bed. And I cannot. Here's like, I need to keep going. I need to keep going. So during like exam seasons, I don't talk to my family. I'm like, sorry, I'm busy. Like I might text, but it's not like I can see them or like I can do something with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you need a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
I think you need a bit of both. Like to be able to get to where you want to be, you have to be a little individualistic. But at the same time, I think you also have to, like, being in a community, I think, or knowing that you have a community you can fall back on. And it could be family, friends, whoever it may be. Like, if you have those things, I guess it gives you that aspect of safety as well. Like, and that you're not alone. Because sometimes I think, and again, like, maybe this is just a personal opinion, but when you become very individualistic, you can start to feel alone. Or I've felt that a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I wonder, have you ever had those moments of loneliness?
Wow. I did. And I feel like I try to fill out myself or my schedule out to not feel alone sometimes. And even just like hang out with my friends, it was good. But when I came here, it was COVID time. So I only knew one person. So that person became my friend and like the person I will spend time with, but I didn't know much people. And if it was not that person, then I was alone. Even my roommates, like because I was living on campus, they went home, so they weren't really on the dorm because it was online, so they just went home. So I was alone there. I really felt alone. I struggle with loneliness a lot since I came here, like a lot. Um, and I think being able to like being alone, it also grows you in a different way, where you can get to know yourself, and you know that even though there's no one like physically around you, you can still like be good. Um, but yeah, I struggle a lot with loneliness, just as you said, like how life works. I remember at first I kind of struggle, like I met a family from church. They were really nice to me, they were really close to me, they were like so nice. And then for us, when and they were really really nice, but it's like also like a schedule time that will schedule with me. So at first it was like, okay, interesting, but I was still trying, like I was new here, so it was interesting to me how it will work, like okay, a schedule time, like from 1 to 2 we will have lunch and then bye, and then next month from 1 to 2. So it was like, okay. uh so I really felt lonely. I was used to being in a collaborative community where you can do things together. Like even if you go somewhere, like you can go with someone. So when I came here, I needed to do everything by myself, and it was a little hard at first, like to just like adapt to kind of being alone, like realize that you are alone and like you need to do like kind of you're the boss of your life now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really struggle, but it really helped having a like after COVID kind of was over, like I made good friends. I had good friends, and that made my life a lot brighter. Being involved in campus or in UCO, like in different organizations,
different capacities.
Yes, it helped me a lot. Just not only to learn, but it gave me a lot of people that truly show me love, like or made me feel love, or like I was valued there. So I can feel like I have people around me, and it felt good.
Yeah, I think like you said, right, you also learned something from it. I think yeah, while the aspect of feeling lonely sucks, there is something that you learn from it that definitely goes a long way. So I guess there is some positive to take from it. But yeah, I think it's also very important to be involved with people, go out, get some fresh air with people, something or the other, right? Like to feel like you're not alone. And sometimes we can, or I've lost sort of sight of that. I'm not saying other people have, but it's easy to lose sight of that, I guess is what I'm getting at. So yeah, totally. But I guess on a more positive note, to sort of close our conversation of, I guess this might be a similar question to ask, but if you want to explore it by answering some other things, you're more than welcome to. What is something that you will take away from your time in America? Yeah, take your time. Take your time. No worries.
I will really say it completely changed me. It really changed me. Yes, my values and everything is there. Like that's my foundation. That's who I am. But it changed me a lot, and not in a bad way. Like I don't think that is a bad way.
Okay, I was gonna ask you that afterwards, but okay, go ahead.
No, I think it changed me in the way that it made me brave, like more brave. It made me stronger. It made me a little bit more outgoing, more intentional. It changed me to even think differently, to just seeing, like even being around different people from different cultures. Like it changed my mind to just not be like one thing, but think in different ways. It showed me so many things, so many opportunities. It made me feel love, and at sometimes it also made me feel lonely. But it was, I I think I had a good experience being here, like a really good experience. I struggle a lot. I'm not gonna say I didn't struggle. I struggle a lot. I struggle with English. I was insecure about my English. So I remember this and I feel so bad. This is really sad. But when I was first here, I had a group in for one of my classes, for one of my leadership classes. We were like four, I think. So they will talk and talk and talk and share their ideas and all that. I wouldn't talk, but it's not because I didn't want it to talk. I think one of them is like, I think back home also, as how I grew up, is like you listen when someone is talking, so you don't just talk and talk. Oh, that was another culture shock, but that's another, like, it's going to another way. Like, I just feel like sometimes when people meet here, like, talk and talk and talk. But for me, like, if I needed to talk, like, I needed to have a space to talk. But I don't think that's how conversations go here. That people just talk and talk and talk and talk, and they can talk about so random stuff that I never thought about. Like one day they were talking about a water bottle, like, and how the water looks like this, and then they were saying like this water, like this brand of water was like different than this other brand. In my mind, I didn't never thought about the brands of water because I just never thought.
Right.
And then they were just like very random stuff. So they were just talking and talking and talking, and I wouldn't say anything, but they just kept talking for 2 hours. And
about water.
yeah, water, yeah. And then I was like listening because I didn't know, like I didn't have an opinion. Um, I just think for them, like they will look at me thinking like I will say something, but they just talk so fast and jump and jump and jump. So I never talked during the 2 hours. I feel so bad because they felt uncomfortable like being around me because I didn't say anything. And they were like just like weird. I can see in their faces like they will think like they just look confused, like why I didn't say anything. And then in the next time we met, it was the same thing. Like they just talk about something random and they just talk and talk and talk. But they never breathe. So I never had the space to kind of say something. And it was just so random that I also didn't know what to say. I didn't have an opinion on that. So I feel bad because like they might not think I'm from a different country. I don't speak English as my first language. They would just think, oh, she's weird. Or she doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to participate. But yeah, but later on, like we still meet. We met again in a different class, and yeah, I think they understood. Like, it was my first semester here. I don't speak English as my first language, so I struggle with English at first. Like, I really struggle with that. Then I also struggle just like missing home. Like it was COVID time, so it was really hard to make friends at the beginning. I struggled with loneliness, a little bit of depression too, and then I needed to talk about it with someone. So it kind of got like good, but I did struggle with depression and anxiety, and I never experienced anxiety before, so it was something new for me here. And yeah, I'm not afraid to talk about it now. Like I know it can be like a little complicated or like I don't know, very intimate for some people, but I'm not. Just because it was like it took a huge part of my life, like a really really, and it was a hard time, but that taught me a lot, and yeah, that taught me a lot. And even though it was really hard and I struggled a lot in America, I think I had a good time. Like I learned so many things here. I love it. Um, I just think I love my community here. Like my friends, like made the best thing of my life here. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very nice note to sort of close off on, because again, we sort of came back to that entire aspect of community and
Yeah.
like how that helps the individual. So yeah, that's a great note to close off on. Thank you so much, Belen, for taking the time to do this. I appreciate you taking the time and answering all my very tangential questions. So thank you. Thank you. And yeah, for those of you listening and watching, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.